There has been a lot of talk about the potential fight between you and Ilia Topuria. How do you look at that situation?
Yeah, I like this idea. If UFC want, I know a lot of MMA fans want this fight. I'm ready.
What about fight in White House in Washington? Do you thinking about that?
Yeah, also it's one of the arena where I'm gonna fight next, and we have the Ramadan month when I'm not gonna training 1 month, and after that I will slowly beginning my training camp, and I will be ready White House or as other dates. I will be ready.
The White House card is already soaked in gasoline, and the match hasn't even been signed. Islam Makhachev didn't whisper, didn't tease, he detonated the room by aiming straight at Ilia Topuria. No side chatter, no polite build-up, just a cold, direct challenge that snapped the narrative in half. In an instant, the conversation shifted, and the air grew heavier. The division's rising wrecking ball now stands under a spotlight that doesn't blink, about to be stress-tested on one of the largest stages imaginable. And this isn't casual matchmaking, it feels like a calculated strike. Coming from the most suffocating force at lightweight, the message is clear. This is leverage, this is pressure, this is a move designed to bend the timeline of the sport. If it truly lands on the White House card, it won't just be another fight announcement, it could redraw the lines of control for an entire era. One signature could flip the balance of power. One walk to the cage could crown a new ruler or expose a crack in the throne. The stakes aren't subtle anymore, they're suffocating. And now that the challenge is out there, unanswered and echoing, the tension isn't whether fans want it, it's whether anyone can stop it from happening.
I think when Ilia comes back, for him to go to 170, is the risk to reward worth it? I think so. He'd be the first 3-time UFC champion ever. So he'll be not in Mount Rushmore. He'll be in face. Will be in Mount Rushmore. No one's ever won 3 belts. No one's ever done it. And as it stands, even right now, it's a very uphill battle for Ilia to go up to 170 and beat Makhachev. So if he does, you can't argue that he's not the Michael Jordan, that he's not above everybody. John Jones, GSP, like you got to just put him in his own category of greatness, and nobody can say nothing about him. You just got to sit there and be like, yep, he did it, and that's.
When Ilia comes back, the real question isn't hype, it's danger. Does he dare jump to 170, and is the risk to reward truly worth it? I think it is, because if he pulls it off, he doesn't just make history, he shatters it. He becomes the first 3-time champion the UFC has ever seen. Not a mention on Mount Rushmore, his face becomes the mountain. No one has ever held 3 belts. No one has crossed that line. And right now, let's be honest, it looks like a brutal uphill climb for Ilia to move to 170 and dethrone Islam Makhachev. The odds don't whisper, they scream. But if he does it, if he storms that weight class and takes the crown, you can't debate it anymore. He isn't just great, he's untouchable. You can't compare him to John Jones. You can't stack him next to Georges St. Pierre. He doesn't share air with legends, he becomes his own category of greatness. The conversation ends. You just sit there and admit it. Yes, he did it. And now this isn't fantasy matchmaking anymore. Makhachev has made it clear he's willing to face Ilia Topuria on the White House stage. He'll sign if the UFC demands it and the fans roar loud enough. After Ramadan, he expects to return in full form, sharp and ready. No theatrics. No noise. Just the steady certainty of a champion who knows the clock is ticking. And if this collision happens, it won't just headline a historic card, it could permanently carve a legacy into stone.
There has been a lot of talk about the potential fight between you and Ilia Topuria. How do you look at that situation?
Yeah, I like this idea. If UFC want, I know a lot of MMA fans want this fight. I'm ready.
What about fight in White House in Washington? Do you thinking about that?
Yeah, also it's one of the arena where I'm gonna fight next, and we have the Ramadan month when I'm not gonna training 1 month, and after that I will slowly beginning my training camp, and I will be ready White House or as other dates. I will be ready.
And if it works, it won't just headline a card, it could permanently brand a legacy into the sport's spine. Because Ilia Topuria isn't circling this fight like a cautious contender hoping to edge out a decision. He's talking about detonating a kingdom. This isn't about surviving 5 rounds, it's about flipping the world of Islam Makhachev upside down and watching the pieces fall in slow motion. Ilia even joked cold, almost playful about asking Islam what his favorite submission is, memorizing it, then using that very weapon to choke him with it. It sounds like humor, but there's venom underneath. Topuria claims he wouldn't just defeat the champion, he would finish him, emphatically, violently, right in front of his mentor. And that's where it twists deeper. Because the mentor expected cage side isn't just anyone, it's Khabib Nurmagomedov, the architect of the dominance that built this dynasty. Ilia isn't aiming at a belt, he's aiming at the foundation. He's talking about reversing the narrative that made them untouchable, about cracking the aura in front of the man who helped forge it. If he pulls that off, it won't feel like an upset, it'll feel like an overthrow. The image alone is cinematic, the protege falling, the mentor watching, the dynasty trembling. That's the scale of what Ilia is promising. Not points on a scorecard, not a narrow escape, a finish, a statement. A moment that could echo far beyond one night and redefine who truly controls the era.
How would you beat Islam Makhachev?
Me personally, I would ask him like, what's your favorite submission? Whatever, dark show, I'm gonna submit you with that.
So if you ask him what his favorite submission is, you would do that to him?
Yeah.
This is a guy that's trained and coached by Khabib.
I take him close to Khabib. I will submit him closer to Khabib.
You'll submit him in front of Khabib?
Yeah. Khabib used to take people, take them down, and talk to Dana. I will take him,
And then talk to Khabib.
talk to Khabib.
The debate doesn't cool off with bold predictions, it mutates into something heavier, legacy. Chael Sonnen raised the uncomfortable question that lingers in the shadows. Can Ilia Topuria ever truly be crowned the greatest of this era if Islam Makhachev is dominating at the exact same time and the two never collide? That's where it gets complicated. As electric and ruthless as Ilia's run has been, Sonnen points out that Islam's resume runs eerily parallel: title defenses, elite names, statement performances. If Makhachev keeps stacking victories, keeps tightening his grip, you're no longer talking about a single division ruler. You're staring at a potential 2-division champion operating in the very same championship window, breathing the same air, collecting hardware in real time. And if that happens without a head-to-head reckoning, the era fractures. Greatness becomes split down the middle. One man can't fully eclipse the other because the shadow remains. That's the tension history hates: unanswered questions. 2 dominant forces, rising simultaneously, rewriting records on parallel tracks. If they never fight, the debate won't fade, it will fester. Every win for Ilia will echo with Islam's name attached. Every triumph for Islam will circle back to Ilia. The era won't belong cleanly to either man. It will feel disputed, unfinished. And in a sport that demands proof inside the cage, the only way to silence the doubt is collision. Until then, the argument doesn't end, it sharpens.
Can Ilia be the GOAT operating in the same time, the same era as Islam, if those two never meet? As impressive as what Ilia has done, wouldn't you have to say Islam's done the same thing? And wouldn't you be forced to say that? Ilia's had one match at 155 pounds, and he won the world title. Islam's had one match at welterweight, and he won the title. So, if Islam keeps going, he's a 2-division champion. How does Ilia surpass him? And there's a way, right? First off, Islam has
He breaks it down even further. Yes, Islam Makhachev has a loss on his record, but are you really going to chain him to that forever? One misstep, one flash of vulnerability, doesn't erase the avalanche of dominance he unleashed afterward. It doesn't cancel the control, the suffocation, the steady dismantling of elite opponents that followed. If anything, it sharpened him. And then there's timing, the silent architect of legacy. Ilia Topuria moves up, bold and unapologetic, openly calling for Islam, signaling he's ready to gamble everything. The tension spikes. The moment feels inevitable. But instead of meeting him there, Makhachev pivots, declines the clash and shifts his sights to 170. Suddenly, the narrative tilts. The storyline isn't clean anymore. It stops being a simple ledger of wins and losses and becomes something more strategic, more political. It becomes about doors opened and doors closed. About who chased the fire and who redirected it. In an era where perception shapes greatness almost as much as performance, those decisions echo loudly. Because legacy isn't built on numbers alone, it's carved by risks taken at the right time. And when two dominant forces circle the same throne but choose different paths, every move feels amplified. Every choice becomes a statement. The debate stops being statistical and starts becoming philosophical. Who seized the defining opportunity? Who stepped into the storm and who stepped aside?
What do you want to do? Everybody, right? It's one of those things. What do you want to do with that? You want to hold that against him? You want to act like that doesn't speak to his greatness as opposed to him getting caught in one moment? And what do you want to do? But eventually you're going to be forced to say, well, he's got a loss and he doesn't. You also do have the timeline that Ilia came to that weight class calling out Islam. Islam publicly said no to that fight and went to one.
Moreover, Jack Della Maddalena isn't soft-pedaling his prediction or hiding behind safe analysis. He sees Islam Makhachev walking out on top if the collision with Ilia Topuria ever detonates into reality. Jack gives Ilia his respect, acknowledges the explosive power, the sharp timing, the confidence that borders on reckless, but then he lowers the boom. Size matters. Presence matters. And Islam's physicality, that suffocating frame and control, could become the silent difference when the lights burn hottest. According to Jack, if Ilia wants more than a moral victory, he cannot let it drift into deep waters. He has to keep it standing, keep space between them, and land clean, punishing shots before the grip closes in. Because once Islam clamps down, the fight doesn't just slow, it tightens. The margin for error disappears. Bottom line, this isn't fantasy matchmaking anymore. It's a stylistic puzzle screaming for resolution. It's the kind of pairing that forces fans, analysts, and fighters to lean forward. And in Jack's view, it's not optional, it's necessary. The UFC doesn't just benefit from making it, the promotion needs it. A clash like this wouldn't simply silence arguments on talk shows or social feeds. It could rattle the entire lightweight division, redraw the pecking order, and send shockwaves through every contender waiting in the dark.
Who got winning? Islam or Ilia?
Man, I don't know. I think Islam.
For real?
Yeah. Ilia's good. I just reckon the size would be a lot.
He got bigger. He said he started taking creatine or some shit.
Yeah, he was big. But then again, Ilia he's a heavy puncher, eh? If he can keep it on the feet and land punches, be a good fight. It needs to happen. I think a lot of people want to see that.
Additionally, Alexander Volkanovski looks back at his first war with Islam Makhachev not as a routine title fight, but as a raw unveiling of something inevitable. Even then, before the aura fully calcified, Islam's brilliance was impossible to ignore. Walking into the cage with him didn't feel like just another defense, it felt like stepping toward a shifting tectonic plate. Volkanovski recalls the suffocating precision, the calm menace in Islam's approach, the sense that every exchange carried calculated intent. The skill wasn't emerging, it was already world-class, already sharpened to a dangerous edge. And the stakes? They weren't subtle. The bout drew record-breaking attention in Australia, a stadium humming with pressure, expectation, and national pride. Every second felt amplified. Every scramble felt historic. Volk emphasizes that the night wasn't just about who edged ahead on the scorecards, it was about witnessing the full architecture of Islam's style under the brightest lights. The composure, the control, the adaptability. That fight, loaded with tension and global focus, didn't just crown a winner, it exposed why Makhachev was destined to become one of the most dominant forces in modern MMA. For Volkanovski, sharing the cage that night meant confronting the future of the division in real time and realizing that the future was already standing across from him.
Even though you didn't win that first fight in Perth, what did you gain from fighting Islam? It was very high level and no one's really pushed him to that level since.
Well, we know how good Islam is till this day, and look what he's doing. And everyone knew that back then. It's just he hasn't faced the guys yet to even get that type of resume. Even though his resume was still good, it wasn't the resume what he's got now, but everyone knew he was that good. And me moving up against a guy that's got that style, everyone thought there's no way. So for me to go out there and do what I did, and a lot of people thinking I won, and just having that type of fight, me still being pound for pound number one, was still crazy. Like for us, and like, you know, we broke records here in Australia when you talk numbers and gates and pay-per-views here in Australia, everything like that. So it was a massive fight. It lived up to the hype, the storyline, everything around it was just incredible. And a very, very big part. Even though I lost, I still think it's probably the biggest moment of one of the biggest moments of my career till Sydney this weekend.
Yeah, and that was the last time you fought here in Australia.
That was the last time I fought in Australia, yeah. And that was me not defending. This time I'm defending about.
Alexander Volkanovski also warns that Ilia Topuria's southpaw stance isn't just a cosmetic detail, it's a tactical landmine waiting to be stepped on. A left-handed opponent rewires everything. The entry angles shift, the jab lines up differently, the takedown timing gets distorted, and even the smallest hesitation can echo louder than usual. Against someone as disciplined and structured as Islam Makhachev, those subtle changes matter. Volk points out that while Islam operates with surgical patience and composure, he's historically looked most fluid when dealing with orthodox fighters, where his reads come naturally and his setups fall into rhythm. A southpaw like Ilia disrupts that rhythm. The lead-foot battle becomes critical. The outside angle becomes a weapon. One wrong step could open a lane for a clean counter or a sudden level change. That's why, if they ever lock horns, it wouldn't simply be about power or cardio or even dominance, it would be layered strategy unfolding in real time. Every feint would carry intention. Every stance switch would signal a trap. Volk sees it less as a brawl and more as a high-stakes chess match inside the octagon, where a single positional error could flip momentum instantly. Skill would matter, of course, but so would adaptation. And in a fight that technical, the smallest adjustment could decide everything.
And another thing that I want to touch, because you bring up Islam being a southpaw. Mm-hmm. So with Ilia's style, again, with a southpaw, a lot of your shot selections and everything changes with a completely different stance. Mm-hmm. So I think that's going to give him a lot different problems. He's got time to work on those things, obviously. Yep. But I just don't think he's, you know, I talked about being stoic and being on task and having that flow in, or that process to finding the shot. I think I will say this, I feel like he's a lot more effective on orthodox than southpaws. I'll say that.
Yeah,
I'll say that now.
You're saying Ilia Topuria is more effective against orthodox than southpaws? Or you saying...
Yes, even from little...
Yeah. Okay.
And then Demetrius Johnson steps in, slicing the matchup open with clinical detail. He notes that Ilia Topuria has historically looked most fluid against orthodox opponents, familiar rhythms, familiar entries, familiar counters. That's his comfort zone. But standing across from a southpaw like Islam Makhachev flips the board instantly. The lanes Ilia usually fires down aren't there in the same way. The angles bend differently. The reactions have to be recalibrated on the fly. Johnson zeroes in on Islam's body kicks, thudding, precise, and timed to disrupt. When those land clean, they don't just score, they smother counter opportunities before they're born. They freeze the hips. They stall momentum. Suddenly Ilia is forced into split-second decisions, absorb the strike and risk accumulation, crash the distance and gamble on tight exchanges, or wrestle through the impact and test Islam where he's strongest. None of those options are simple. That's why Johnson frames it not as a slugfest, but as a chess match in motion, violent, fast, and relentlessly strategic. Every stance shift could be bait. Every feint could be a trigger. One misread angle, one delayed adjustment, and the tide could turn without warning. In a fight that technical, the outcome may not hinge on power alone, but on who solves the puzzle first under suffocating pressure.
Yes. Yep, yeah, I agree. I feel Ilia Topuria fights better when he fights orthodox, because that's what you get used to seeing when he fights somebody who's southpaw, because that's one of the things that Islam did to you. He threw that body kick because you're shorter, right? Like even when I fight guys who are taller and they go southpaw and they throw that body kick, I'm like, fuck, I can't get to him. If they throw the body kick correctly, right? If they throw it like, you know, a whip, you're going to be able to get to him. But if I throw like a Muay Thai, like a whoom, and drive my knee across your forearms, it's like there's no opportunity for you to counter. It's a lot harder to deal with. And that's what I think Islam's going to try to do. But then, like you said, Ilia Topuria is going to be like, okay, I'm going to have to eat that right hand immediately, or eat it, try to wrestle, eat it, or try to get closer to him. So it's an interesting matchup. And I can't wait to see how those two approach the dynamic of that fight.
Johnson then lays out exactly why Ilia Topuria is such a nightmare inside the cage. He paints him as a force that never pauses, a predator constantly moving forward, denying his opponents any rhythm or breathing room. Trying to evade Ilia isn't just risky, it's fatal, because the instant he closes the gap, every limb, every strike, every calculated hammer falls with precision. Add to that a proven chin that swallows punishment and a fearless willingness to trade shots head-on, and you have a fighter who pushes you not just physically but mentally to the breaking point. He's the type you can't outsmart, can't outlast, can barely predict. Every exchange is a gauntlet. Johnson emphasizes that it's this blend, the relentless, suffocating aggression fused seamlessly with technical brilliance, that makes the prospect of Ilia facing Islam Makhachev so electrifying. The matchup isn't just about skill, it's about wills colliding, pressure mounting, and the fine margins that decide champions. One misstep, one delayed counter, and the fight swings. That tension, that danger, is exactly what turns a hypothetical fight into a spectacle that demands attention. It's the unpredictability layered atop mastery that keeps fans and analysts leaning forward, imagining how the unstoppable force meets the immovable machine and who, if anyone, cracks first.
I think Ilia's always been the fucking bull. Even when he fought you, when he fought Max, when he fought Bryce Mitchell, he's always coming. And that's why I think it's so hard to fight. Because even when I don't fight anymore, but I'm like, okay, where do you beat a guy like Ilia? Where do you beat a guy like Volk? Where do you beat all these guys? And I feel with Ilia, if you try to run from him, you're fucking yourself. Because if he finds you, then it's like, fuck, now I got to try to, it's like fighting Rodtang. If you ain't got a chin and you can't, good luck trying to beat Rodtang in a striking battle, right? Because he just has chin and he has the power. So I feel like Ilia, he's got it, his chin hasn't been tested. I feel like it's been tested, but he's willing to give a shot he takes a shot to give his own shot. And I feel like those are always.
Whereas Jorge Masvidal steps in to dissect the stakes if Ilia Topuria dares to chase Islam Makhachev up to 170, framing it as the ultimate high-risk, high-reward gamble. He paints the picture vividly. If Ilia succeeds, he doesn't just win another belt, he becomes the first fighter in UFC history to hold 3 simultaneously, instantly catapulting him into Mount Rushmore territory. Masvidal underscores the magnitude of that achievement, the seismic shift it would cause in how we measure greatness. Beating Islam at a higher weight isn't just another notch on the resume, it's a definitive statement that cements Ilia above the rest. He would stand shoulder to shoulder with immortals like John Jones and Georges St-Pierre, yet in a league that's entirely his own, untouchable and unassailable. Every discussion about era dominance, every debate about skill versus legacy, would be overshadowed by the audacity of the feat. Masvidal stresses that such a victory wouldn't just add to Ilia's resume, it would redefine it, marking him as an outlier, a benchmark for future generations, and a force whose name alone commands awe and respect. The implications ripple far beyond a single fight. It becomes a statement carved into history itself, an untouchable monument to unparalleled ambition and execution.
I think when Ilia comes back, for him to go to 170, is the risk to reward worth it? I think so. He'd be the first 3-time UFC champion ever. So he'll be not in Mount Rushmore. He'll be in will be in Mount Rushmore. No one's ever won 3 belts. No one's ever done it. And as it stands, even right now, it's a very uphill battle for Ilia to go up to 170 and beat Makhachev. So if he does, you can't argue that he's not the Michael Jordan, that he's not above everybody. John Jones, GSP, like you got to just put him in his own category of greatness, and nobody can say nothing about him. You just got to sit there and be like, yep, he did it, and that's.
Jorge Masvidal continues hammering home just how seismic it would be for Ilia Topuria to chase Islam Makhachev up to 170. He frames Islam almost mythologically, the pound-for-pound king whose reign has been relentless, dismantling every top contender with surgical precision, submitting elite opponents with unnerving ease. Masvidal emphasizes that if Ilia manages to conquer that monolith, he doesn't merely join the elite, he ascends to a category entirely his own, untouchable and undeniable. Even the skeptics, the critics who dissect every nuance of his game, would have no choice but to acknowledge his legitimacy. Because defeating someone like Islam isn't just about landing punches or executing moves, It's about surviving the full spectrum of his dominance, reading the fight like a living chessboard, and managing a complete package of power, timing, and suffocating control. Every second on the feet carries exponential risk. Every hesitation or misstep can spiral into disaster in an instant. Masvidal underscores that the challenge isn't theoretical, it's a gauntlet that tests not only skill but endurance, strategy, and mental fortitude. Pulling it off would be a statement not just of victory, but of mastery, an indelible mark proving that Ilia is capable of confronting and surviving the apex predator of the lightweight division, and emerging as something more than a champion, a legend in his own right.
Dude, who is this mythological figure? Now you're talking about he's gonna go to 170 and beat the #1 pound-for-pound guy in the whole sport that's been holding it down for like 4 or 5 years that I can think of. This guy's just crushing everybody. The biggest names that he gets crushes him, just takes him into a black hole and submits him, you know. So Ilia gets that done. You put that dude in his own plate. You didn't even talk about him. Just like you didn't even talk about Ilia, because that's something that still every head in the sport will turn. Every fighter, no matter how much they dislike Ilia or whatnot, could only say one thing, like, yep, Ilia's the damn truth. Because he's the complete opposite fighter. To beat a guy like Ilia's Makhachev. That's the type of guy you need to beat Ilia. Somebody could just keep it on the mat. Because if you stand...
On the other hand, Khabib Connington isn't holding back about who he wants to see step into the cage with Islam Makhachev next, and it's Ilia Topuria. Khabib frames it as the ultimate litmus test, a fight capable of settling lingering debates over who genuinely deserves the pound-for-pound crown in the UFC. In his eyes, if there's a matchup with real significance against Islam, this is the one that cannot be delayed. A showdown of this magnitude, he argues, wouldn't just entertain fans, it would eliminate all doubt about who truly commands the lightweight throne. Every movement, every strike, every tactical decision would carry the weight of legacy, and the winner would emerge not only victorious but elevated into a realm of undeniable dominance. So the question lingers, will this fight actually make it onto the White House card? And if it does, who will walk out with supremacy, Islam Makhachev or Ilia Topuria? The answers aren't simple, but the debate is electric. Drop your thoughts in the comments below and weigh in on what could be the defining clash of the era. And don't forget to hit that subscribe button, because missing out on the latest MMA updates in a moment this charged would be unthinkable. The tension is building, the stakes are sky high, and the world is waiting for the next move in this unfolding saga.